Hello class, and welcome to Excel Working with Simple Functions. My name is Bill Berquist and I'll be your instructor for this lesson. Topics covered in this lesson include the following: what are Excel functions, general function syntax, and then some common functions: sum, min, max, average, today, and now. What is a function? In a nutshell, a function is a named built-in formula within Excel that is used to calculate values when a formula would be too complex or inefficient to use. Excel has several hundred built-in functions broken up into several categories, which can be found on the Formulas ribbon tab. Excel function syntax. Every function has a general structure of how it's created. We first have the equal sign, and then the function name with the open parentheses, one or more arguments, or maybe zero arguments separated by commas, and then a closed parentheses. Note, some functions have no arguments but still have an open closed parentheses. Let's talk about the sum function. The sum function is the most fundamental of all of Excel's functions. The sum function is used to find the total of a group or range of cells. Let's look at some function examples. All functions begin with the equal sign, with the function name, open parentheses, 0 to several arguments separated by commas, and then closed parentheses. This sum function adds up all the cells from A1 through A10. The colon that separates the two addresses is a delimiting character that tells Excel to go through, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are included. The next example is the sum function again, A1 through A10 with a comma B1. So this function would add up all the cells from A1 through A10 and whatever's in cell B1. So this is a 2-argument function. The last example is a 3-argument function. The sum function would add all the cells from A1 through A10, whatever's in cell D1 through D10, and whatever's in cell F9, separated with 2 commas. Let's talk about the auto sum feature. The auto sum button is a button on the Home tab on the ribbon. Although all Excel functions can be keyed in manually, Excel offers several ways to enter a function into a cell. Since the sum function is so common, the auto sum button can be used on the ribbon to total a range of cells. Let's go over to Excel now and practice using the sum function. Okay everybody, here we are at our Excel spreadsheet. This is for the company Delta Technologies. It's a revenue report. And we have 4 areas here, the north, south, east, and west districts, with all of their revenue coming in for the year, okay, for the entire year. So let's go ahead and learn our auto sum function, or our sum function, and let's get some totals. Looks like I've got lots of totals everywhere. Whenever you see the word total, you want to think sum, okay, the sum function. So there's a few ways we can enter in the sum function. I'm going to start over here at the end. Here we go. And I want to add up all these numbers, and that's what? Range B7 all the way to M, as in Michael 7. So I'll just type in manually, equals sum, uppercase, lowercase, does not matter, open parentheses, and then B7 colon M7, and then close parentheses, and there's my function. It's a 1-argument function. I'll hit enter, and there's my total. Now when I hit enter, the cursor moves down, so I'll go over here, go up a cell, go over here and grab my fill handle and drag down 2 cells, and it copies down. And you can always see what you actually put into the cell appear in the input line. So B7 through M7. When I copied it, the row adjusted automatically, didn't it? Now it's B8 to M8, and this is B9 to M9. Okay? Now a quicker way to do it, rather than typing it in manually, is we can use our auto sum button, the Greek symbol for sigma right here. and I'm going to highlight all the way across. Notice I didn't grab the fill handle, okay? Your mouse basically has three operations when you place it over the cursor. You have the selection, okay? Then you have your fill handle when you want to copy, which is the skinny plus sign. And then you have the four-headed arrow if you want to move something. So be very careful. I just want to highlight, there we go, the large plus sign. And I'll click here, and I'll click my auto sum button. And there are all my totals. To kind of speed up the process, all these cells are all pre-formatted. Okay, so it looks good. Now I'll come down here. I do over here first, because if I do over here first and hit auto sum, okay, I'm going to get a 0. And for whatever reason, I don't like that, but you can do it that way. And I hit auto sum here. There we go, and it automatically fills in. I always like doing over to the far right first for some reason, but I guess ultimately it doesn't matter. Okay, now let's do both of these ranges. Let's do all four totals at once. I'm going to highlight my three cells, hold the control key down, and then highlight. And then I still have the control key down. Keep highlighting all the way across. And here. And I'll hit the auto sum button. There we go. And now I have all my totals. And if I change a number, all the answers update automatically. That's the 100% benefit of a spreadsheet. Okay, now the grand total is going to be a little bit different. The sum function wouldn't really benefit here too much because it's not a group of cells all clumped together. My totals are all separated, aren't they? Yeah, where are they? They're in B11, B20, B29, and B38, okay? You have four separate cells that are separated. So AutoSum probably wouldn't benefit. I would just do a straight formula, okay? Where did I start here? Equals B11 plus B20, okay? So equals B11 plus B20 plus B29 plus B38. Now, if you notice, you can always use something called the pointing method. I'll hit enter here to get my answer. My answer is correct. I'll hit delete. When you're adding up, when you're using a function with multiple cells, in different locations, rather than having to look up the cell address, we can use the point method. So I'll just, my starting point is right here in cell B42, and I'll do equals. Then I'll just click on B38, and then plus sign. I'll click on the 76,000, that's my total. And you can see it building the formula down here. That's called the pointing method. Okay, it's very, very cool. And you can use that for AutoSum too. And if you look down here in the status bar, it says point. And I'll do another plus sign. There we go. And then plus, oops, plus B11. There we go. So there's my formula way down there in B42, I think, right? And I'll hit enter. And then I'll put my cursor back on there and I'll copy across. There we go. So our grand total is 3,669,963. So if I change a number anywhere, everything updates automatically. Okay, updates automatically, looks good. Now, yeah, one other option when it comes to pointing, let me get rid of these real quick. There we go. Is I can do this, equal sum, open parentheses, you gotta have your open parentheses, and then just drag through your range like that. And that's called pointing. Very cool. Point is down there again in the status bar. I think that's a very, very cool way to where you don't have to remember all these different cell addresses. You just point to them with the mouse or the keyboard. And I'll drag across again. There we go. And that is a little bit of our sum function. Okay, so we typed in a sum function manually. We also use the auto sum button right up here. Okay, we also used the pointing method with the sum function, and we created just a basic formula for our grand total down here. just equals those 4 cell addresses, okay? And now our worksheet is up and going and it looks good. All right, let's go ahead and head back to the classroom and talk a little bit more about some additional functions. Other functions. Now that you know the sum function, let's look at some other common functions used in Excel. Some other popular functions in Excel include the average, max, and min functions. The average function calculates or displays the average or mean of a range of cells. The max function, short for maximum, displays and calculates the highest number in a range of cells. And of course, min or minimum will display or calculate the lowest number in a range of cells. Let's look at some function examples. Equals average A1 through A10. This would display the average of values in range A1 through A10. The max function, or equals max A1 through A10, comma D1, this is a 2-argument function. It would display the highest value in the range A1 through A10 and includes D1. And then lastly, equals min for minimum, equals min A1 through A10, comma F1 through F10. To those 2 separate ranges, you would display the lowest number from both of those ranges. Let's go ahead and go to Excel and practice using the average, max, and min functions. Okay, everybody, here we are at a very simple city temperatures worksheet. I actually have 2 worksheets in here that we're going to use. We're talking about the average, high, and low, or the average, max, and min functions. Okay, the average, max, and min functions. It's extremely similar, virtually identical to the sum function, just a different name, and that's it. Okay, so rather than adding up these temperatures, I don't want to add up the numbers, I want to find the average. Okay, now mathematically speaking, how do we get the average? Very, very simple. We simply add up all these numbers and divide it by the number of numbers. Okay, so whatever the sum of this is, divided by 5. All right, and that's basically our average. But we can use the average function. So I'll type in equals average. Again, uppercase, lowercase, doesn't matter. Open parentheses, and then I'm going to point and just drag through the entire range. Notice B7 through F7 builds. Pointing is like so cool when it comes to doing your formulas. Now, I know we have to close the parentheses, but I'm going to give you a cool trick. For very short, succinct functions like this, you know, you're just averaging just a single range, you don't have to close the parentheses. You can just hit your Enter key, and Excel will put the parentheses on there for you. There we go, 79.2. I got a remainder because whenever you divide, more often than not, you're given a remainder, so that's my decimal. And I'm going to double-click my fill handle, and that copies it down. I want to format it a little bit. Let's see, maybe I'll center align it. And I also want to get rid of these decimal places, so I'll click Decrease Decimal right up here. There we go. Now my high will be equals max for maximum. Open parentheses, and you get a little, actually you get a little help screen right here. And I'm going to point to these 5 cells. Exact same range as the average. Okay, notice I didn't include the average because I don't want to include that in my formula, just the actual numbers for the 5 days. And I'll hit enter, and I get an 86. I'll center align it. Now for my low will be min for minimum. Open parentheses, I'll drag through my numbers, and I'll hit enter. And if I look up here in the input line, see how Excel closed the parentheses for me? I'll center align them, and there we go. Now I can highlight, not the fill handle, I'm just going to highlight these 2 cells, and I'm going to double click my fill handle, and I get my highs and lows for the week. Okay, pretty cool. Now for my average, we'll do it this way. We used the auto sum button up here before, right, to automatically sum up numbers, but notice there's a drop down arrow, and look at that. I have some more functions that are very commonly used. So I'm going to click on average, okay? And Excel wants to average everything down, including that empty cell, but I don't want to do that one. I just want to highlight those cells, B7 to B11. It's very crucial on the Excel certification test that you do the proper ranges. You don't want to omit any cells, and you don't want to have any extra cells by accident, because you will get docked points for that, if not the whole task wrong. So you don't want that to happen. So be very careful, be mindful, and get your proper ranges. Okay? Average, I'll center align it. And I'll go down here, and I'll do equals max for the highest number in my list. Exact same range as the average again, just a different name. 81 equals min, open parentheses, same range again, hit enter. Now I can highlight both cells, not the fill handle, just highlight them, and center align, and I'll grab my fill handle. And there we go. Whoops. What mistake did I make there? Should have highlighted all three. There we go. Notice I didn't go all the way across. So I don't need a high of a high or an average of an average. Okay. If you want that. Let me get rid of these decimals. Alright, very good. Now if these temperatures change, everything updates accordingly. The average will always change. The high might change if you typed in a higher temperature. But obviously, if I typed in 100, now the high is 100 for Boston. Okay, looks good. All right, that's a little bit with our average, max, max and min. Let's go over here to student grades worksheet. A little bit bigger worksheet here, and let's do the same thing. And I'm going to do average, maximum, and minimum. Notice I didn't put high and low. I don't know why the exam did this. When I took my certification exam for Excel, they put maximum and minimum in there, all right, which kind of gives you the answer, I think. They don't have high and low, but I went ahead and just did it the same way that the test does it. So let's get our averages, highs, and lows for our 10 exams for our algebra students. Okay, so I'm going to click my down arrow and pick average. And you can look at the range, make sure it's picking the proper range. B9 through K9 looks good. And I'll center align it, get rid of my decimal. Okay. My maximum, I can go over here to my auto sum button again and pick max. Okay. There's a problem with this one because it's including the average, but I don't want to do that, so I just reselect it with just the 10 tests. There we go. Here's a neat trick. Most people don't know. When you hit enter, the cursor moves down to the next cell, right? Well, sometimes you don't want the cursor to move down. If I do a control enter, not enter, but control enter, I get my answer and the cursor stays put. Kind of a neat trick. All right, equals min. I'll go to my auto sum button and there's min. And it's doing the wrong range again. Be very careful with your range addresses. There we go. And I'll center align it. Okay, now I want to copy them all down. I'm not going to use the fill handle. I'm just going to highlight. And I'm going to double click my fill handle. And there we go. Now I have all my highs and lows. One thing I like to do in the real world is kind of shade my results. That sort of gives me a transition between raw data and formulas. Okay, hard-coded data and formulas. Let's see, I'll do like a very light, I'll do a light blue right here. There we go, or turquoise, or whatever it is. And that kind of tells people, hey, maybe I shouldn't mess around down here. One common tale in the real world is people will type in numbers on top of your formulas, totally negating the entire formula, and you don't want to do that. All right, so let's do average over here now. And wrong range again, so I'll highlight all the way down to here. Okay. I'll center align it. Notice Excel automatically rounds up a number if you omit the decimal places. So if I do 81.65, it should say 82 if I get rid of the decimals. Yep. Okay. Here's maximum. And there it is. Remember, we're using the pointing method now, aren't we? And then minimum. Highlight both cells and center align them. There we go. Now I'll highlight all 3 cells, not the fill handle, just highlight, and just drag across to test 10. There we go. Now we have all the averages, highs, and lows for each individual exam. So let me go ahead and click my shading button again. There we go. So now it's very lightly shaded over here. That kind of tells people that my my cells contain formulas, okay? And don't mess with the formulas. Don't mess with the shaded cells. We'll talk more about protecting worksheets in a later lesson. You can actually restrict what gets typed into a cell, okay? Obviously, you don't want people messing with your cells, okay? With your formula cells. So there's actually ways you can protect that, but that'll be in a later video, okay? Actually, I think it's in the expert level Excel test, but it's not really all that hard. Okay, so there are, actually let me shade these right here. Looks a little more consistent. Okay, looks good. All right, so there is some practice with our average, max, and min functions. Okay, let's go ahead and head back to the classroom and talk about our next 2 functions, equals today and equals now. Date and time functions. 2 very popular date functions are today and now. Now there are many actually, date functions, but today and now are very, very popular. Let's go ahead and talk about those functions. The today function equals today, open parentheses, close parentheses. Notice there is no argument. It shows you the current date. The current date is whatever the actual date is from the internet. Excel's pulling the date from the computer, and the computer most likely is pulling the date from the internet. So the date really needs to be correct. If the date's not correct, the first thing I would check is the time zone for your computer. The now function will show you the current date and the time. Okay, it shows both the current date and the time. You will get these 2 functions in some sort of fashion on the Excel certification test, and it's very common for test takers to get the 2 functions mixed up. The today function is only the date. The now function is the date and the time. Notice how there are no arguments, but the open and close parentheses are still required. Let's go ahead and go to Excel and practice using the today and now functions. Okay, here we are back at our city temperatures worksheet, and we're going to talk about the today and the now functions. Very, very simple functions, very neat to use, okay? This video shouldn't be very, very long at all. Let me go over here to cell B3, and I'm going to type in equals today, open close parentheses. Okay, even though there's no argument inside there, I still have to have them. And I'll hit enter, and I get the current date, 7/26/2024. The date, Excel's pulling it from the operating system pulls it from the internet, so I know my date is correct. For the time, I want to use equals now. Equals NOW, open close parentheses. You will definitely have to do this on the certification test for Excel. Pretty much guaranteed. But it's a very simple question. But there are a couple of things I want to show you. Okay, so now I'm getting 2 things for the equals now function. I'm getting today's date, and I'm also getting the time, 13:16, and it's military time. The question I got in the certification test was to use the now function, or on the certification test, they don't tell you exactly what to do, obviously. They're going to tell you use the proper function that shows the date and the time, and that's going to trigger in your mind equals now, open close parentheses. Then it'll tell you to format the time to a specific time format. So I'm going to, with myself selected, I'll go up here to my ribbon in the number group, and where it says custom, the drop down list, and there's time. There we go. And now the date goes away, but the time stays there. Now, it might tell you to pick a different time format. You want to make sure you pick the proper time format. So I can go over here to my little launcher button, and there's time, and there's all my different time stamps that I can pick. I like this one. I don't want to see the seconds on there. And I'll hit OK. There we go. All right, looks good. Same thing for the date. I can click the date, and I can go to my launcher button, and you can pick different date formats. I think the one I had to pick on the certification test was something like this down here. I remember I had to scroll down to find it. That's one thing about the certification test, everybody, is they really make you look around for stuff. They make you scroll down, scroll up, scroll right, scroll left. You're scrolling all over the place on these certification exams, so be aware of that. Be very, very mindful of that. Okay, so there's my equals today function, my equals now function. You can see them up there in the input line. Okay, let's go to student grades and do the same thing. All right, let me zoom in a little bit. There we go, and I'll do equals today. I'll do equals now. Remember, now is the date and the time. Whoops, I see hashtags. That means that the column's not wide enough to show everything because it wants to show the date and the time. But I'll just change it to a time format. There we go. And let me go over here. I'll pick a different time. Ooh. I'll just do this one. Okay, military time. All right, pick a different date. I'll pick this. Okay, looks good. All right, looks good. So, yeah, very, very simple functions to use. Very popular today and now. Most popular mistake students make on the certification test is they get today and now mixed up with each other. Okay, today is just the dates. Now is everything. Okay, now it's time for everything. You get the date and time. Okay, all right. Let's stop here, and let's go ahead and head back to the classroom. Okay, let's do a quick 3-question quiz. Question 1. Pick the correct function that would add all cells in range A1 through A20 and whatever's in cell D1. A equals sum A1 through A20 equals D1, equals sum A1 through A20 comma D1, or equals sum A1 through A20 minus D1. Well, A is not going to work because there's an equal sign at the D1, and that's not the proper delimiting character. B equals sum A1 through A20 comma D1 looks good. Letter C equals sum A1 through 20 minus D1, not going to work. That does not add up all the numbers, so our answer is going to be B. Equals sum A1 through A20 comma D1. It's a 2-argument function separated with 1 comma. Quiz question 2. Pick the correct function that will display the average or mean of cell ranges A1 through B10 and F1 through F25. A equals average A1 through B10, comma, 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 F1 through F25. B equals AVG, open parentheses, A1 through B10, comma, F1 through F25. Or C equals average A1 through B10, comma, F1 through F25. Well, I know it's not going to be A because of all the commas. I know it's not going to be B because the word average has to be completely spelled out. So my answer is C. Equals average A1 through B10, comma, F1 through F25, 2 arguments separated with 1 comma. Quiz question 3. If Janice enters equals now, open close parentheses into unformatted cell B3, what would the result be? The current date and time, the current date only, or the current time only? Well, it wouldn't be just the current time, and it wouldn't just be the current date. It'd be both the date and the time. Equals today enters just or just displays the current date. Let's do a quick summary about what we've learned. This lesson taught you the basics of Excel worksheet functions. We discussed function syntax or structure. We learned about the sum, average, max, min, today, and now functions. Future lessons will not only build on these functions, but you'll also learn many more advanced functions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next video.